the lane. 15-10. Touchdown, Chargers. What's up, guys? Welcome into a brand new episode of Chargers Weekly. As always, joined by Matt Money Smith. Money, we are not in the sun anymore, my man. The comfort of your own home studio. How are you?
Yeah, as you can see, I'm trying to get used to the mic again, sitting right in front of my whole fat face. So, yeah, just settling in. I'm actually supporting our colleague, Daniel Jeremiah, today. Huge one in Boone, Appy State.
Oh, here we go.
North Carolina made the poor decision.
Let me see it again.
There you go. Little Mountaineers there. Little corncob
That's a good
pipe.
look to see.
The Tar Heels made the poor decision of agreeing to visit Boone with a little North Carolina territorial war, come on and raise up kind of vibe going. And I think they brought in like an extra 15,000 seats. It's going to be a rager out there in Boone. So supporting our man, move the sticks, and hoping it all works out well for him.
Be careful what you wish for, Tar Heels, right?
That's right. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be a street fight.
It's the Move the Sticks Bowl too, right? It is. It's a Bucky DJ Bowl.
Yeah, Bucky Brooks, North Carolina, Tar Heel. What was he? A wide receiver and returner, and then they made him a DB when he got to the NFL. Yeah, so there you go. Yeah, should be fun. Move the Sticks Bowl.
There you go. College football underway. Week 1, about 10 days or so away, and we finally hit this initial 53 money. I thought we could go through it and kind of get your thoughts at each position group. I don't think there was a ton of surprises. We'll start at quarterback. They're keeping 3. Herbert, Chase, and Easton. And I looked around the league this morning. I found it interesting that, there's a philosophy where some teams will keep 2 guys and some teams will keep 3. 19 teams in the NFL have either 1 or 2 quarterbacks on their roster right now. And I say 1 because I think it's Detroit and Dallas right now are looking for their backup. So 19 teams carry 2, 13 teams carry 3. Chargers, one of those 13 teams. Your thoughts on keeping both Chase and Easton behind Justin?
Yeah, I think everyone's alluded to it just because we've peppered, be it Joe Lombardi or Shane Day or Brandon Staley about it. And they all say the same thing, and it's just that Justin likes the quarterback room. And kind of with Charger fans, if you're on social media, and I like to engage and talk and chat with them and kind of hear their thoughts back and forth, a lot of them are upset about them keeping 3, trying to get that extra roster spot for like Mark Webb or Michael Bandy or one of those players, Jamal Davis, the kind of those last maybe 3 that were waived instead of carrying 3. And to which, my point is, look, did we ever think Kellen Clemens was going to be a viable starting quarterback if Phillip Rivers went down? No. Like, he would have gone in a pinch in a game, and then they would have had to have gone out and found a quarterback. That's what they would have done. Like, Kellen would not have been their starter. But you know what? Kellen was on the roster every year because Phillip loved working with him. And he was an Iron Man, and he was never going to miss a game. So, like, that's sort of the analogy that I'm making is Herbert likes the quarterback room. Easton is an incredibly smart guy, sees things that other quarterbacks don't. It's great and I know I'm saying this, like, it's not like a name dropping, but man, it's fun talking football with Easton. He is a bright guy. So I think that's the 3 quarterbacks are Chase Daniel is a coach on the field. He knows this system inside and out, having been in it for so long as Drew's back up with the Saints. And Easton just has a great football mind. And why would you want to change something that one of the best quarterbacks in the league says he likes the way it's set up? So that's it. If Justin wants 2 more, Justin's getting 2 more. And that's going to be good for the Chargers. A lot better than having somebody else at number 53 instead of keeping Easton Stick in a quarterback room that Justin Herbert enjoys.
Yeah, that's a case closed situation. If 10 wants 2 more in the room, he's getting it. And I think both guys bring something unique. I mean, we've talked about Chase and just his career and knowing the system and knowing just how to be a professional. And then Easton, I mean, we had him on the pod early in training camp. The fact that you go 49-3, there's a reason why you go 49-3 because you're pretty darn smart. And if Justin likes a setup, that's what it is. And it worked out last year, didn't it?
Yeah, and I would just add this. Like, for people that think Easton Stick wouldn't get claimed if he's on a practice squad, you're high. He would. He'd get claimed in a second. He would be a backup quarterback on a number of these teams ahead of the backups that they have. So you could not stash him on the practice squad. Could you stash Chase Daniel? Maybe. I think you might be able to get away with that, but that's what makes this one sort of complicated. Like, to me, just my opinion, if Justin, and I hate even saying it, if they needed a backup quarterback in the middle of a game, Chase would be the one to go in. But if they had a week to prepare, Easton would be the starter, just because of what he can do athletically, how mobile he is, the pressure that he puts on defenses because of that mobility. So that's kind of the unique situation the Chargers are in and why they would keep 3.
Yeah. You were in New Orleans. Chase had a pretty good first half, 10 of 11.
It was great.
It looks like he probably cemented that backup role.
Yeah.
But you're right. Listen, Easton has that dimension that, everyone, I think, tried to compare him to Taysom Hill coming out of college, even though he's not even close to the size of Taysom Hill.
I think it makes sense.
But he has those attributes in terms
Yeah.
of running and doing that dual threat role.
100%. I think it's an apt comparison. Is he as big? No, but he's big. I mean, Easton's not small. Just because he's not tall doesn't mean he's not thick. Like, he's a muscular guy. He could totally play that Taysom Hill role. I believe that. I think you could play him on special teams. Like, it's crazy to think you'd put somebody that's a quarterback on special teams, but I think he'd be incredible on special teams. So, like, that's again, I don't think we need to belabor it. Justin wants it. Lombardi wants it. Day wants it. Staley wants it. It's happening.
Yeah, and it's continuity. You carry it over from last year. I think that's a good thing. Running back is interesting. We know Austin Eckler. I think Joshua Kelly may have put his stamp on that running back 2 spot last Friday in New Orleans. Isaiah Spiller hopefully comes back from injury soon. Larry Roundtree's on this roster. But Coach Staley has said they're going to look outside the league at positions if there are guys available. A lot of running backs were cut, and I think Rap Sheet reported that Sony Michel's coming in to meet with the Chargers. So I think that's one of those positions, money, where, hey, if you can upgrade, you look to do that.
Yeah, Chris, I think the running backs, it's not going to look like this when the season starts. And you hate saying that because we know these players. You don't want them to be out of a job. You want them to realize their NFL dreams. But I think it was just far too common a refrain from all the coaches that they were waiting for one of these guys to raise his hand. And they never did. And, even though Josh looked like he had the best preseason of the bunch and certainly played well against the Saints, like some of the plays he made, if they felt that way, I don't think we would have heard that so often. And you mentioned Sony Michel, Marlon Mack, Tevin Coleman, there's players, proven players out there that could fill, we hear about Alexander Madison in Minnesota becoming available. So like that position group is not going to look the way it does right now. I think one of those players is going to end up, or maybe 2. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. If they feel like, you know what, we can get a couple of these guys. There's a tremendous rate of attrition at that position, and we're going to go grab them. I mean, look, Justin Jackson was let go.
I was just going to say, I don't know anything about Justin Jackson, but I was shocked because he had a really good preseason up there.
Yeah, but I think it's the same issue that he had with the Chargers. You cannot afford to have a guy on the roster that you're running back to that gets hurt after the first play of the game or in the first quarter, and that just happened way too often with Justin. Like, it was way too often. It's one thing not being available on game day. It's another thing to be available and then not be available for quarters 2, 3, and 4. So there's talent out there, and there's not always talent out there at that position, but there is this year, and I think it lines up with what the Chargers are looking for. So my guess is Sony Michel does not leave L.A. without a deal. That's the first guy they brought in. They had an opportunity to bring in Mack, who signed back with the practice squad of the Texans, which means you can pluck him off of there after week 1 or something like that if you want to. But the fact that they chose to bring Michel in first, as long as the physical checks out. Look, the guy averaged 4 yards per carry last year with the Rams. He had darn near 1,000 combined scrimmage yards. I think 5 combined touchdowns. He's averaged over 4 yards per carry in his career. Helped the Patriots to that Super Bowl championship against the Rams. Like this, was a incredible.
Remember that divisional game
Georgia.
against the Chargers? Remember that divisional game against the Chargers?
Exactly. So it's like
3 touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that to me. That's the no-brainer. Is he'll end up likely, as long as he passes the physical, he'll end up being signed. And I think, It's unfortunate probably for Larry Roundtree would be my guess, but, you put him on the practice squad, and it's a position of attrition. And, he can find himself back on the active roster.
And it was a numbers game, I think, in Miami when it comes to Sony Michel. Mike McDaniel runs that Shanahan running scheme. And
yeah, the
you have
wide
Mostert
zone
down there. You have Gaskin down there. So for Sony, he had nine carries, 13 yards, at a touchdown in preseason. But you alluded to his numbers with the Rams last year. Kept them afloat, kept their running game afloat. And for what he would have to do in Los Angeles, let's say, just got to spell Austin Eckler, and you got to be efficient when you do it. And I think that both he and Josh are capable of doing that. And obviously, we think Isaiah Spiller's more than capable of doing that when he's healthy. So that's certainly a position group. Your ears kind of perk when Coach says, hey, we're also going to look around the league to see if we can improve our roster. And I think that may be the position group that does it. Yeah.
Every team does that. Do not.
Some more than others, though, today, Money. Like the Bears claimed 6 dudes.
Well, they stink.
The Giants claimed 5 dudes or 4 dudes.
They stink.
The Jags claimed 5 dudes, So some more than others.
What's the common thread there? Those are teams that stink.
Yeah.
That have not played good football the last couple years. And so that's what they're trying to do is they're taking as many bites at the apple as they can. Teams that were in the playoffs last year or were really good last year, have good rosters top to bottom that you feel good about. You don't see them putting in a lot of waiver claims. When you have a roster in the fashion that the Bears do, they are, especially offensive line, they are a mess. Wide receiver, they are an absolute mess. The Chargers are looking for 1, 2 players.
Tweaks.
I know we're going to go through the whole roster, but running back is one of them, and not surprised at all that they're bringing Sony in, if not a couple other people to get a look at.
Kind of big news which affects week 1. And, Alex Leatherwood is no longer a Raider. That happened after the last time we spoke, and he is now a Chicago Bear. So there you go. It's one guy who's left the division.
For all the Charger fans that are, jumping up and down and celebrating that failure, that's the wrong play, man. This is the exact opposite of what you want to see happen. When Alex Leatherwood was drafted number 17 overall, it wasn't just the majority, it was the consensus. As someone who covers the draft and covers the combine and all of that, nobody thought that was a good pick. Everybody thought it was a terrible pick. I remember watching Alex Leatherwood film with DJ 2 years ago when he decided not to come out and go back to Alabama, and everyone was talking about him as the left tackle, and it was like, no, it's Jedrick Wills. It's the right tackle. Look at that guy move. Leatherwood's stiff. He's getting bent in half and shoved off his spot every snap. What they saw in him, I don't know. But here's my takeaway from that, just real quick, Chris. It's bad news because it means you have an owner that is not going to meddle. And we like Mark Davis meddling. That's what you want if you're a Charger fan. You want him saying, I'm paying this guy $14 million. Figure it out. Coach him up. Trayvon Mullen, he was a second-round pick 2 years ago. You're not trading him for a 7th. Figure it out. Coach him up. I'm paying him $5 million. Instead, Ziegler and McDaniels now are given the keys to the kingdom. Hey, whatever, man. If you tell me that 4 college free agents that we're going to sign instead of Leatherwood and Trayvon Mullen are going to make us a better team, you go after it, guys. I trust you implicitly. You did it in New England for all those years. I need you to do it here. I would have loved to have seen Alex Leatherwood out there at right tackle week 1 on September 11th, and unfortunately he ain't going to be there. So, I think be careful what you get excited about because the Raiders' draft picks have been failures, during the Gruden-Mayock era from 19 to 21.
I mean, you guys can see the list. I'm sure that everybody knows who watches this, the list of draft picks who are no longer on that team. I feel for Alex Leatherwood, too, because you get the expectations of a first-rounder when you really weren't a first-rounder.
Don't feel for him, Chris. The guy got $15 million.
All right, that's too.
He had no business being drafted there. He got $15 million.
Think about this, though. He goes 4 selections after Rashawn Slater.
Yeah. It's a terrible
4 selections after Rashawn Slater.
It's the same 17. It's the same slot they drafted Zion. It's the same slot they drafted Derwin. It's the same slot that CeeDee Lamb was drafted. Like 17, you need to get a good player, if not an all-pro.
Yeah.
And they got a guy that was on the team for 1 year, was the worst offensive lineman in football, and made $15 million. So, it happens. Guys get to the NFL and they stink. It's no big deal. He was able to play at a level at Alabama that somehow got Mike Mayock and more likely John Gruden. I think Mayak's taken a little bit too much incoming on this. From everything I understand, is Gruden would flex his muscles in the first round and then disappear for the rest of the draft. But, he got his check. Get your bag, and you know what? Celebrate it, man. And hopefully go back to work and get better, and maybe he can kind of get things rolling with the Bears. But I'd celebrate that $15 million because he had no business getting it.
Yeah, 15. You're right. It's hard. It's hard to feel for $15 million in your bank.
Exactly. Go get it.
Fullbacks, Xander Horvath beat out Gabe Neighbors quickly on this. I think this is a guy they drafted for a reason. Going to help on special teams and new fullback in L.A.
Yeah, not much to add. Looked better than Gabe throughout training camp. Was running with the ones on special teams. He's athletic. He's a guy that piled up a ton of yards at Purdue. He's a converted linebacker. Kind of fits the exact mold of, we've talked about it before. Can we find another Derek Watt? A guy that's going to get maybe 3 touches on offense in a game, maybe. Will maybe be in for 15% of the snaps and needs to be a core 4 special teamer. And I think that's what you're gonna get with Horvath. And I think because of his athleticism, you could see Joe Lombardi try to kind of figure out, okay, let's see if this could be kind of that 2-back set. It's not just always Austin and Josh Kelly or Spiller or Austin and Sony Michel or Austin and whomever it might be, but it could be Horvath and Austin out there, and you can get him involved in the passing game as well. So, yeah, to me, I think we saw the limitations of Gabe, and because Horvath appeared to be a much better special teams player, that cemented that selection.
Tight ends, no surprises here. They're keeping 3, led by Gerald Everett. Donald Parham's back. Trey McKitty's back. I'm excited to see Everett when it's real, because we saw some of these flash plays throughout training camp. That's a guy who I think can really. I don't know if we've talked about him maybe enough in terms of what the offense is going to look like, but he's an ascending player, and I'm excited to see him adjust and go to work.
I think that's another one to keep an eye on. I think that's a position to keep an eye on. I think if there's a tight end, they've always carried 4 in the past. I think that's one that they may kind of keep their eyes on the cut list, on the trade market. Because I think as much as Justin likes using his tight ends, especially in the red zone, I could totally see them trying to figure out, just because of the injury with Parham, I think you got to be careful. Trey is still coming around as a pass catcher. And Everett, while he's a willing blocker, he's not kind of your standard Y. So I think that's something I would also keep an eye on. I think that's worth kind of monitoring the next week.
Yeah, it's a good point. You could be very thin at that position just like that.
Yeah.
Wide receiver, listen, you nailed this one. As we tape this, by the way, guys, no Chargers who were cut were claimed today on Wednesday. So guys like Michael Bandy, who we've talked about a lot on this podcast over the last month, it looks like he could be trending back here on the practice squad.
Yeah.
They kept 5 as we suspected, Bunny. I don't think there was ever a doubt that those were going to be those 5. We were just wondering could they potentially keep Bandy as a 6 wide receiver. You laid out the case very nicely last week why it doesn't make sense, because he'd never be active on game days.
It's the same thing. Yeah, we don't have to belabor it. It's he's not playing the slot ahead of Keenan and DeAndre Carter, so that's that. All good. I hope he gets on the practice. Look, I hope he gets a job on a 53-man roster, makes a bunch of money, because we love watching him. We love who the kid is. I keep saying kid. He's not a kid. Love who the young man is. He's a heck of a player. He busts his tail in training camp and in the preseason. But, I think he's going to eventually be back on the practice squad. And then if you deal with injury, then there he is. You ready to call him up?
Yep. Also hoping good things for Joe Reed. I don't know where he's going to land, if he's going to land back here or somewhere else. But
yeah,
good dude who was drafted here a couple years back, had some injury issues, and had a decent preseason at that first game, a tougher one in game 2. Yeah. But, that's another guy who special teams, he can help you. But when you have DeAndre Carter, you're good.
I think he'll be I think he'll absolutely make it back to the practice squad.
Offensive line. We finally got the word Trey Pipkins is going to be the dude. I think, as we also kind of suspected here for the last few weeks, just seeing the way that Trey came into training camp and really kind of changed his body this offseason. Any surprises on the offensive line in terms of the guys they kept and Trey at right tackle?
Yeah, not at all. It's exactly what I thought we'd see. It is remarkable the job that Tom Telesco and JoJo and that whole staff and Kevin have done, along with Coach Staley and his staff, to think where this offensive line was 2 years ago and where it is today. it is nothing short of a football miracle. When you're talking about, Forrest Lamp and Dan Feeney and Michael Schofield and Sam Tevy and Trey Pipkins, that was your front five. And now you've got All-Pro Slater, someone who's a borderline Pro Bowler, Matt Filer, All-Pro Corey Linsley. We feel really good about Zion and Trey. And you listen to the coaching staff talk about Trey and how far he has come in that 1 year that he's been under their tutelage.
And not giving up on him.
Not giving up on him. And also, then when you go behind that, to have Storm as a swing tackle. I know there were a couple games that people will think about, particularly the Raiders and what Max Crosby was doing to him, but there were games where Storm played really well. So to have that guy as your swing, if you need him in a pinch, if someone goes down, with all that starting experience, man, there are so few teams in the league that have two tackles. For the Chargers, I think when you combine Trey and Storm, I'll give them the Chargers have 2.25 or 2.5 tackles. So that's a huge bonus for them. Not surprised they kept Sawyer, whom they just drafted. Hymas I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of or from in the preseason. I thought he struggled a little more than I would have thought in the preseason, but I think they still think highly enough of him because he's got, and that's the thing about offensive linemen. You got to have positional flexibility if you're going to be a backup. And Sawyer, we know, can kick out the tackle. He did it at at Georgia against Alabama. He kicked inside the guard after starting that game at tackle, and he did that throughout his career. We know that Hymas was a tackle at Nebraska and also played some guard. He's starting to take some snaps from center. Will Clapp, of course, you got to keep as your backup center because you have to have someone who plays center full time. So it's not a surprise to me at all. We already talked about Storm. So, yeah, it's the 9 guys that I think we all figured we're going to end up making it.
You hope that continuity continues throughout the course of the season, but, also positional flexibility with Filer. If let's say you have to move Filer out to right, maybe you could plug in one of these dudes like a Sawyer at guard. So I think there's combinations if you ever get in a bind throughout the 2022.
100%.
Let's see. Edge rushers, Bosa, Mack, Chris Rumpf had a really good preseason. Those are the guys, and I think we talk about Kyle Van Noy as being that kind of flex at linebacker and edge. So that kind of gives them an advantage there. You get a little 2-for-1 action.
That was the one spot where I thought there was that was kind of there was only one position that I was wondering about. One player that I was basically 3 players for one spot that I was curious how it was going to work out, and one of them was edge. Did Jamal Davis do enough in the games in the preseason to be kept over an extra corner that we'll get to in a little bit? And I think he was great against the run. He's able to shed. He stuffed a couple guys. He stoned some dudes. He plays with physicality. But I remember DJ saying it in the Saints game. He's like, I want to see Jamal get to that passer, man. He's been bull rushing. He's just kind of got to show something. He's got to show a move, got to show the ability to adjust, to get back into that backfield. And I just don't quite think he ever got over that hump. And that's why they went with 3. But like you said, technically it's 4. And I think because Rumpf has progressed so quickly and gotten so much better that, if he needs to go on a 3-4 game run where he's a starter, you feel good about it. That guy's good enough to be a starter in this league as an edge, with what he's shown. So, and then you add Van Noy into that, someone who's done it his entire career and been exceptional at it, a guy that averages about 5 sacks per season. It says 3, but it's really 4 because of Van Noy, that's what most people carry.
Yeah. So you heard that ding in my inbox. That's the practice squad. So by the time you guys listen to this, you'll probably have already seen it, but I'm just going to go through it in real time as it was just released. Zach Bailey, tackle. Michael Bandy, Christian Covington, Joe Gaziano, Keemon Hall, Michael Jacquette, Hunter Kempmoyer, Carlo Kemp, Raheem Lane, Tyreek Maddox-Williams, the linebacker. Jason Moore is back. Joe Reed, who we just talked about, is back. Foster Sorrell, tackle. Mark Webb Jr. That's the list.
Interesting. So the one name that's not on there is Jamal Davis, right?
Jamal Davis
was just talking about
list. Yeah.
That I thought might make the 53. So, yeah, I think it goes to show you, they were probably looking for the same thing. He's an edge, and if he can't get to the passer, then it's kind of hard for us to keep him around. So, yeah, it's pretty much exactly what we thought it would look like. They got both Bandy and Reed back. And, yeah, here you go. See, you get it a little bit before I do, so now I can see it in front of my face. Love that Gaziano's on there. Huge fan of his. Yeah. And we saw what happened, when Joe was called up a couple times off the practice squad because of attrition. He played very well. Kent Moyer, I thought
Joe could have got claimed, too, so I'm glad he's back.
Yeah, me too. But it just goes to show you, and, that's what I keep preaching to these people, to fans, is you end up falling more in love with these players than personnel evaluators. It's inevitable. You see them make plays against twos, or you see the film of Joe getting the tip at the line of scrimmage for a pick six on Herbert, and you're not watching the non-splash plays, which is what the other evaluators are watching. Hey, snap in, snap out. What are we looking at? And there's a reason why these guys, look at that. And they got Covington ended up passing through back onto the practice squad. So that's huge because, we're going to get to that in a minute because he was definitely the 53.5 man that was in everybody's mind. So, yeah, that's it. Just looking at the practice squad. 1, relax everybody. Bandy's on the practice squad. 2, no Jamal Davis.
Yeah. Defensive line, we were pretty intrigued to see what the rotation was going to look like behind the starters. And Sebastian Joseph Day, we knew. Austin Johnson, Tito Abonia, Jerry Tillery, Fehoko, Morgan Fox. You just saw Christian Covington, Joe Gaziano are back. I'll say this about Jerry. His fifth-year option was not picked up. So, if anything, you're going to have a pretty motivated guy and trying to get a deal in 2023. So
I hope so.
I hope that they see a Jerry Tillery who's going to improve against the run and continue to get after the pass. But I like the defensive
Chris.
line.
That's just quickly the thing with Jerry's consistency. Because they say, after the Cowboy game, go back and look at that next game now. He bounced back against the Chiefs. Okay, so do it every game. Do it every snap. To me, that's the thing with Jerry is he's just got to be consistent. You've got to be able to trust him when he's out there. We've seen the splash. It's there, man. This dude can play. I mean, he is built unlike a lot of dudes that play that position. He is tall. He is long. He is thick. And he's got athleticism. He just got to do it snap in, snap out, game in, game out. And it's clear he can because the splashes are there. But then just going to Fehoko, it was Fehoko versus Covington. That to me, when I saw the rosters, okay, there's one of the two big decisions that had to be made. Do we want the vet in Covington or do we want the young player that started out borderline not making the team, not making the practice squad, makes the team, kind of bounces back and forth, and now is ready to be an every week contributor in the rotation. And Fehoko, I think, has certainly proven that and has gotten better every single year.
I like the depth. at the D-line this year. And the fact that you can have Gaziano and Covington on the practice squad in case something happens there. But I think really seeing Austin Johnson, who we talked to last week, and Sebastian Joseph Day in that starting lineup, what that's going to look like against the run, especially week one against Josh Jacobs and company. I think that's going to be a big deal. Not only week one, every single week, but if we're looking at the Raiders, that defensive line, how they can hold up against the Raiders run game, that could be something that may decide it.
Yeah, I think it's too well. There's kind of multiple sort of facets to that conversation, right? 1, pass rush; 2, run defense; and 3, being connected to the rest of the defense. We already talked about edge. When you're talking about defensive line, it's okay. So Morgan Fox and Jerry Tillery are kind of your get up field, pass rushing defensive linemen. You think about Austin Johnson, Sebastian Joseph Day, and you think, okay, a little bit more of those run stuffer types. Fehoko added that pass rush to his game, and he said he thought that went a long way into why he made this roster. And they're all, look, Austin Johnson, we mentioned he's got a handful of sacks on his record, so does Sebastian Joseph Day, so they can do it. But I think we're going to get to the linebackers next here, just the run fits, playing that gap and a half that we talked to Austin Johnson about and making sure those fits are there. I think that's the other part of this is those guys are going to be able to mine their gaps, and to have Drew Tranquil and now Kyle Van Noy, one of the smarter players in the league, behind them for run fits, it is completely remade. That interior up the middle of the defense, especially kind of thinking about Drew's injury issues when he goes down, to have Kyle Van Noy there ready to step in, like that's a huge difference. To me, the run D is not going to look anything like it did last year when it was, either last or second to last or whatever it ended up being by the end of the year, giving up nearly 5 yards per carry, making Rex Burkhead look like the second coming of freaking Earl Thomas in Houston.
Yeah. Listen, I don't think the Raiders' run game is anything to write home about, but I just that's the last image we had, right, of the Raiders in Week 18, right?
Second and 11. Josh Jacobs rushes for 18 yards, and they got a 47-yard field goal to go to the playoffs. Yeah. Do you think I remember it?
Yeah, I know you remember it. Linebackers, Van Noy, Tranquil, Murray, Reeder, Amon, Agbangbamiga, Nick Neiman.
Those last three special teams, Chris, just that's where Amon's value is. He's a really good special teams player, core 4 guy. That's where he'll make his mark. Same with Neiman. He was their best special teams player last year. They expect him to grow into that as well. But I think you're going to start to see Neiman get in there on some snaps. He's a good player. I think he started to flash.
Murray's
well,
the wild card in all this, Bunny. He is the wild card in all of
Who's
this.
That?
Kenneth Murray.
Yeah. Look, the thing with Kenneth is it just felt like the coaching staff was trying to figure out how to use him last year. How do we get him to fit into this? How do we get him to be comfortable? And I think for me, I need to see it. And I hope I see it because gosh knows when we're out there watching him work out, my goodness, he is body beautiful. He is athletic as any linebacker you'll ever put your eyes on. We just need to see him get comfortable, and feel comfortable out there. And like I said, I said this last week. I'll say it again, or maybe the week before. I've said it repeatedly. I don't need to belabor the point. It's, he's got the athleticism. He's got the traits, I think, and he's been injured. So when your body starts betraying you and you start thinking too much, that's when you can find yourself in trouble. To me, the good news is, like as crazy as it sounds, because he was a first-round pick, Kenneth Murray is gravy. Like, he is gravy.
He is.
Tranquil is so good and so underrated, and Van Noy is so good and so underrated. It's inexcusable that New England let him walk. That, to me, if Murray ends up realizing the potential that we all think he has this year, my goodness, it's like, wow, talk about a bonus.
Yeah. Plus Reeder, who knows what Staley's all about, and he comes in with that knowledge. So
yeah, played well in the preseason. And again, another, like those 3 names, I mentioned it, Amon, Neiman, Reeder, they're going to be huge on special teams and making sure that operation works considerably more effectively than it did last year.
DBs, I thought it was nice story. This kid from Florida State made the team, number 3.
Never heard of him.
Derwin James Jr. made the team. Good kid. Nas Adderley, Alohi Gilman, JT Woods, Dean Leonard, JC, Bryce Callahan, Asante Samuel, Michael Davis, Jasir Taylor. Anything?
Yeah, the Dean Leonard, that was the big one for me. I mentioned that I thought it was Fehoko versus Covington and that it was Dean Leonard versus, I think Dean was the 53rd spot. I think that's, okay, do we keep Dean? Do we keep Mark Webb? Do we keep Dean? Do we keep a 4th tight end, Hunter Campmoyer? Do we keep Dean? I think that's, my guess is he was the last guy on that list. Just because he's, we saw it in the preseason. He struggled to track the ball. But he's got length. He's athletic. He's sticky. There's good traits there. And there's a reason why we were talking about him early in camp. Because we saw it, and the coaching staff saw it. And they feel like, what? We can work with him. And I would imagine a lot of that, too, is special teams. Jasir, we saw getting a lot of run as the gunner. That's why I think, and I think that's another reason why it's Dean over Kaman Hall or one of those guys, too, because Kaman was a gunner for most of the year last year. So I think my guess is they feel pretty good about Jasir Taylor in that gunner role. And that's why they ended up letting go of Kaman Hall. Is he on the practice squad? Yeah.
He is.
So he's there on the practice squad. So there you go. To me, that was the – and again, man, for people that are listening and are like, what are you keeping Leonard for instead of Michael Bandy? It's the 53rd man. If that 53rd man is crucial to the Chargers' success this season, man, things have gone horribly wrong. Horribly wrong. Exactly. It's a developmental position. It's someone who you feel good about on special teams. So, that's something to keep in mind. The players, like, look, I'm looking at the practice squad and I'm seeing Foster Sarrell in his first year, Zach Bailey in his second year. Those are developmental players. They did not have good preseasons. They struggled, man. That backup offensive line struggled. But they have traits, and they're traits that these coaches want to work with. And I think that's something that everybody's got to keep in mind. People don't come out of college and they're not finished products. It's a big jump. And Dean is one of those guys. Dean Leonard is one of those guys. He's got the traits, but he's not a finished product. And they're probably worried, park him on the practice squad, and someone may want to go get that. Someone may want to, they might see the sticky and they want to go get it.
Guys, let Dean develop. Let Michael Bandy do his thing on the practice squad, and let's turn the page and talk about regular season football next week.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it is. This is the last time we're going to be talking about all these guys in depth. We're going to be talking about Raider Week next week, but we're just going to wrap it up here. Specialists, Hopkins, J.K. Scott, Josh Harris. No surprises there. Those guys had no competition in training camp, and these are the dudes.
What a relief, right?
Yeah.
We're not talking about, two punters going at it and you're choosing one. We're not talking about two kickers, Tristan Vizcaino and, the Money Badger having a kickoff and really not feeling comfortable going into the season. With Dustin, we know he's automatic inside of 50, and then once you get to 50, it becomes a 50-50 proposition. Over the course, that's just what the stats are. He banged one 51-yarder, missed one 51-yarder against the Saints. So, as long as you know that, you feel good with that. That's fine. Not every team can have Justin Tucker. So it's totally, I am comfortable with the special teams. I thought JK had a really good preseason. Cowboys game notwithstanding, there were so many things that went wrong on special teams in the Cowboys game. And I think a lot of it had to do with them just wanting to assess special teams players. So punts were a little less hang time, and kickoffs were out of the end zone. You're going to see kickoffs go through the end zone. You're going to see 4.5 to 5 second hang time punts and a lot of fair catches. And man, that's a relief. That is a relief.
Yeah. Special teams so important, and it's good when you have the security and you don't have, like you said, the competition throughout training camp. Hopkins really established himself back half of the year. Helped them win that game in Philadelphia. And he was such a reliable kicker in Washington. I was frankly shocked that they let him go when they did. You have an all-pro long snapper now, and we've talked a lot about J.K. in the camp that he's having. So can't wait to see it on September 11th.
It's a good roster. It's a really good roster.
It's a good roster, and the fact that you don't have to go outside the league for a ton of things. Obviously, keep your eye on the running back situation. I'm sure by the time you guys listen to this, maybe a move has been made, or Money brought up a good point with the tight end, maybe a touch thin there. But I feel good about a lot of position groups on this team. Your frontline starter is among the best in football.
Yeah, and again, defensive line, offensive line, you feel pretty good about the depth. And that's important because that's where you need depth. We saw it last year. That defensive line got thin in a hurry. They got 6 guys that you feel really good about. Your starters, Joseph Day, Johnson, Morgan Fox, or Tillery. And behind them, Fehoko, Tillery, Tito, however you want to slot all those guys in. Like that's where you want your depth. To have a swing tackle like Storm, to have a backup center and Will Clout, feel good about those two groups. And that's typically where it's going to derail a season if you got some injuries.
Money, a week from now, we're going to be talking Raiders. This podcast is going to look and feel a little bit different. We'll get some big-time guests on and just get right into the season. So I appreciate you guys sticking with us all through camp. Money's good to be out of the sun. I know that was an issue last week for you.
I got to do this Be Real thing for that the kids got me doing. This Be Real. So I just got my notification. You got to take a photo in the moment.
Can you explain the Be Real to me?
So they send you a notification that says take a photo in the next 2 minutes, and you got to take a photo like their clock starts running, and then once you take the photo, it shares it to all your friends of what you're doing right then and there. It's not I got to get this perfect background sunset or kind of like the idea is that Instagram is fake. Let's see what you're really doing as opposed to these perfectly filtered. There's no filters. There's none of that. It's just me looking. So I'm going to put working for a living. for all the people that know Huey Lewis, because that's what's relevant these days.
Is this like the new Instagram? Be real.
See, look, here's DJ's. He's going to be really upset with me. Look at what DJ's posting. Hold on, there we go. Look at him. Hey, check me out. I'm on my Peloton and I got a towel around my neck.
Wait, hold on. Who's his instructor? Hold on, let's see here. Dude, am I late to the party here on Be Real?
Well, listen, you're believe it or not, Chris, your twins probably not old enough to clue you in. You know, you got a little bit of time before they clue you in. That's what DJ and I have going for us.
You want me to be real? Yeah, I'm in the gym with the twins.
There you go.
Every time. Every 2 minutes they ask me to take a picture, I'm in the gym with the twins.
Exactly. There you go, bud. Be real.
I'm being real. All right. Appreciate you guys listening as always. And it gets real next Wednesday on Chargers Weekly. For Money, I'm Chris. We'll see you next week.